Have you ever really stopped to think about how you're able to do, well, anything? I mean, from lifting a finger to running a marathon, it all kicks off with a single thought. Today, we're going to unravel that incredible journey from the initial spark in your brain all the way down to the physical action itself. So let's get into it. Seriously, just think about it for a second. You decide, hey, I should jot that down. And before you can even blink, your hand is moving, your fingers are gripping a pen, and you're writing. It feels instant, right? Almost like magic. But underneath the surface, there's this complex, beautiful, microscopic ballet taking place. So how in the world does a thought actually command your body to move? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Okay, so our journey begins where every single voluntary movement does, with a conscious decision up there in your brain. This is our starting point, the command center for every action you take. That decision in your brain, it unleashes this lightning-fast electrical impulse. This signal just zips from a neuron down your spinal cord and out to the exact muscles it needs for the job. And get this, it's traveling at speeds up to 268 miles per hour. It's like a biological superhighway, and it's delivering one simple message: move. And who receives that signal? Your skeletal muscle. Now, this is the only type of muscle you have conscious control over. And it's not just for the big stuff like running or lifting. Nope. It's responsible for everything from just holding your posture right now to those tiny shivers that keep you warm. Pretty important stuff. Now, to really understand how this all works, we've got to go deeper. And I mean, way deeper. We're about to take a journey from the muscle you can see and feel all the way down to its most fundamental building blocks. You know, a great way to think about a muscle is like a thick rope that's made of smaller ropes, which are then made of even finer threads. It's this incredibly clever nested design. It gives the muscle both immense strength and amazing flexibility at the same time. So, the entire muscle organ is wrapped up in this tough, protective sheath called the epimysium. Think of it like the outer skin of the muscle. And here's a handy way to remember the name. The prefix epi means upon, since it sits right on top of the whole thing. All right, let's peel back that outer layer. Underneath the epimysium, we find these bundles of muscle fibers called fascicles. Each one of these bundles is neatly wrapped in its own connective tissue, the perimysium. And just like before, the name gives it away. Peri means around, kind of like a perimeter. And now we get to the final layer of this muscular Russian doll. Inside each one of those fascicles, we find the individual muscle fibers, which are actually single, super long muscle cells. And each one is gently wrapped in this very thin, delicate layer called the endomysium. And you guessed it, endo means within. So let's do a quick recap of our journey so far. We've gone from the whole muscle organ, down to the bundles of fascicles inside it, and finally all the way down to the individual muscle fibers, or cells, that make up those bundles. It's this beautiful hierarchy from the macro all the way down to the micro. But hey, our journey isn't over yet. We can go even deeper. What's inside that single muscle cell that's actually doing all the heavy lifting? Okay, let's zoom in one last time and discover the real engine of movement. So, packed inside every single one of those muscle fibers are thousands of these tiny protein rods called myofibrils. You can think of them like the cables inside the rope. They run the entire length of the cell. And this is where the magic really happens. They contain the actual machinery for contraction. And if you could look super closely at a myofibril, you'd see it's made of these repeating segments, almost like train cars lined up end to end. Each one of these segments is called a sarcomere. And this is it, folks, the holy grail of muscle movement. We found it, the fundamental unit of contraction. Every single voluntary movement you make is powered by millions of these tiny little engines, all shortening in perfect unison. So, what makes these tiny engines run? Well, it all comes down to two key protein players inside the sarcomere. You've got the thick filaments, made of a protein called myosin, and the thin filaments, made of a protein called actin. And the easiest way to remember them is this. Myosin is the molecular puller, and actin is the rope it pulls on. So how does this whole pulling action actually work? It's all explained by a really foundational concept in muscle biology called the sliding filament theory. Now here's the part that's truly mind-bending. When your muscle contracts, the proteins themselves, they don't actually get any shorter. No, instead, the thin actin filaments slide past the thick myosin filaments. It's like two hands pulling a rope from opposite ends. This sliding action is what pulls the ends of the sarcomere closer together. The engine works by sliding, not by shrinking. Pretty wild, right? This sliding action happens through this rapid-fire, four-step cycle called the power stroke. First, the myosin head latches onto the actin rope. Step 2, the power stroke. It swivels and yanks that actin filament toward the center. Third, a new energy molecule swoops in and forces the myosin head to detach. And finally, the head resets itself, ready to grab on and pull all over again. This incredible cycle happens thousands of times a second across millions of sarcomeres at the same time. So, we've got our engine and we know how it works. But what's the ignition key? And what's the fuel that keeps it running? Well, your muscles have this brilliant built-in safety system. See, in a relaxed state, the spots on that actin rope where myosin wants to bind are blocked by a gatekeeper protein called tropomyosin. It's like a molecular safety lock, and it's there to prevent your muscles from contracting when you don't want them to. So to activate the muscle, we got to get that gatekeeper out of the way. So what's the key that unlocks this safety system? It's calcium. When that initial nerve signal from your brain arrives, it floods the muscle cell with calcium ions. These ions are the key. They bind to a second protein called troponin, and that binding causes troponin to change shape and physically pull that tropomyosin gatekeeper out of the way. With the binding sites now exposed, the engine is clear for takeoff. And the fuel for this whole molecular dance is a molecule you've probably heard of, ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. It's the universal energy currency for your cells. Think of it as the ultimate energy drink for your muscles. In fact, a single muscle cell can burn through 10 million molecules of it per second. One ATP molecule powers the power stroke pull, and this part is absolutely critical, another ATP molecule is needed just to make the myosin head let go. That's why, without a constant supply of ATP, your muscles would literally get stuck in a contracted state. Okay, let's pull our focus back out from that molecular world. I want you to picture that power stroke cycle firing on all cylinders, over and over and over again. This is causing millions upon millions of sarcomeres to shorten, all in near-perfect synchrony. This collective shortening of sarcomeres causes the myofibrils to shorten. That causes the muscle fibers to shorten, and that in turn causes the entire muscle organ to contract, generating the force that pulls on your bones and moves your hand to write that note. And there you have it, from a simple thought, to a nerve signal, to a flood of calcium, to a molecular dance of proteins, all fueled by ATP. And that brings our entire journey full circle. This intricate, microscopic dance powers every single move we make, from the blink of an eye to a new world record in the 100-meter dash. Which really leaves us with one final, fascinating question to think about. If the system is this complex and this perfectly coordinated, what happens when just one part of it, the signal, the fuel, or the dancers themselves, gets out of step?